Ever wonder what happens after the one-night stand with your ridiculously handsome billionaire CEO boss? Forget the romance movie ending. Because what happened when Maya woke up in his penthouse, wearing his shirt, was only the start of the kind of trouble that could wreck her whole life. You know how some decisions feel good for one night, then terrible the moment the sun comes up? This was worse than terrible. This was a $500 million mistake. Maya works for Elias Vance. The Elias Vance, he's the guy on magazine covers, the one who built a tech empire before he hit 30. And last night, Maya had forgotten all about the office hierarchy, all about professional boundaries, and all about the fact that she needed this job to pay her rent. She'd forgotten everything except the way his eyes looked when he laughed. Now she was alone in a silent, ridiculously expensive penthouse apartment, and the only thing covering her was a shirt that probably cost more than her couch. She woke up slow. The kind of slow that tells you your body is still processing half a bottle of champagne and a whole lot of bad choices. The first thing she noticed was the view. It was dizzying. Floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the whole city. Down below, the world was already in motion. Tiny cars, tiny people, none of them knowing the absolute disaster unfolding 50 stories up. Then she noticed the sheets. Not her scratchy cotton ones. These were silk. Cool, heavy, expensive silk. She pulled the covers tighter around her, and that's when she saw it, the sleeve. The white cuff of a crisp, perfectly tailored men's shirt. Her stomach dropped down to the polished marble floor. It wasn't hers. It was his. Elias's. She shot up, her head hammered. She was wearing only the shirt. A huge, expensive white dress shirt that smelled faintly of a ridiculously high-end cologne and maybe a hint of last night's poor decisions. She tried to remember. It was all a blur of office party, a lot of cheering for the new project launch, a few too many glasses with the bubbles, a taxi ride, and then a very strong memory of a key card swipe and a shared breathless laugh in an elevator. The details after that were electric but fuzzy. Too fuzzy. The problem wasn't just that she had slept with her boss. The problem was that Elias Vance was famous for being a cold, demanding, entirely professional machine. He'd fire someone for a misspelled email, let alone this. And she wasn't just anyone at the office. She was his personal assistant. They were meant to be two separate planets, the sun and a small obedient moon. Now the moon was crashing into the sun's orbit and was about to get totally burnt up. She swung her legs over the side of the bed. The bedroom alone was bigger than her entire apartment. Dark wood, minimalist art, and a view that screamed, "I have more money than God." She needed to get out. Now. Before he came back. Where was he anyway? She tiptoed out of the bedroom, the massive shirt feeling heavy and thin all at once. The main living space was even more overwhelming. A huge open space with furniture that looked like art pieces. A kitchen that looked like it had never ever been used. She spotted her purse on a sleek black countertop. Relief washed over her. Keys, phone, wallet, check. She was halfway to the front door when she heard a sound, a light clink. Like ceramic meeting marble, he wasn't gone. He was in the kitchen making coffee. She froze. The door felt a million miles away. She was hiding behind a large, ridiculous sculpture of a polished chrome deer. She felt like an idiot. This was not the stealthy, professional exit she'd planned. Elias Vance, the man who controlled her paycheck and possibly her entire career path, was standing there. He was wearing black athletic shorts and a simple grey t-shirt. His dark hair was still messy from sleep. He looked less like a corporate shark and more like a guy who was impossibly attractive and who was currently sipping coffee, looking relaxed, totally unaware that his personal assistant was crouched behind an avant-garde deer statue in his $4,000 shirt. She needed a plan. He turned, and he saw her. The moment stretched. It was probably only 2 seconds, but it felt like the earth stopped spinning. His eyes went from his coffee mug to her head peeking over the chrome deer's haunch, down to the ridiculous amount of shirt she was wearing, and then back up to her face. He didn't look shocked. He didn't look angry. He looked calm, too calm. He took another sip of his coffee. "Morning, Maya," he said, his voice deep and completely casual. "Did you sleep well?" She felt her cheeks turn fire engine red. "Elias," she managed, her voice a pathetic whisper. She stood up, brushing down the front of his shirt that didn't need brushing. The sudden formality of using his first name felt heavy. At the office it was always Mr. Vance. The shirt... "I'm so sorry. I didn't have a chance to... I need to go," she was babbling. She sounded like an idiot. He put his mug down. The sound echoed in the massive room. He walked towards her slowly, like he had all the time in the world. She wanted to run, but her feet were glued to the floor. The closer he got, the more real the disaster became. "Sit down, Maya," he said gently. "We need to talk. And you definitely need coffee." She sank onto the nearest sofa. It was soft and deep, swallowing her up. The morning light poured in, harsh and unforgiving, highlighting the mess she'd made of her life. Elias went back to the kitchen and came back with a huge mug of coffee, which he placed in her hands. She took a shaky sip. It was perfect. Of course it was perfect. Everything this man touched was perfect. "Look," he started, sitting across from her. "About last night." Her entire body tensed. Here it comes, she thought. The professional speech. The warning. The severance package. The end of my career. It was stupid of me, he said, not meeting her eyes. "Wait, what? Stupid? You?" she had to ask. Elias Vance didn't do stupid. He did brilliant, calculated, and successful. He ran a hand through his hair. "Yes, stupid, I am your boss. I know the rules. I know the power dynamics. I should have stopped it the second it started to get blurry. You were celebrating. You'd worked incredibly hard on the fusion deal. You deserved to let loose. I, on the other hand, should have kept my distance." His honesty was another punch to the gut. It wasn't the cold professional dismissal she'd expected. It was an apology, but "I didn't exactly stop it either, Elias," she admitted, looking into the dark coffee. "I was a participant." "I know," he said, his voice softer now. "But there's a difference. For you, this is embarrassing. For me, it's a failure of leadership. This can't happen again, Maya, do you understand?" Her head swam. He was letting her off the hook. He was taking the blame? "Yes," she whispered. "I understand. It will never happen again. Good." He stood up. "Now I have a few calls before my 9 a.m. meeting. I'll call you a car. You take the day off. Call it personal time. When you come back tomorrow, we forget this ever happened. We are back to Mr. Vance and Ms. Reyes. Nothing changes." Agreed. It was the perfect, clean solution. Professional, detached. Exactly what she should want. The way he delivered it, though, felt like a door slamming shut. Not just on a bad idea, but on something else. Something she hadn't even realized was there until it was gone. She took another gulp of coffee. Agreed. She got home an hour later. Her small apartment felt suddenly cramped and ordinary. She threw herself onto her own couch. The clean, expensive scent of Elias's shirt was still on her, a constant, sharp reminder. She spent the entire day replaying the last 12 hours. The way he had leaned in to talk to her at the party. The way his hand had brushed her back when she laughed. The way his penthouse apartment had felt like a bubble, a world apart from her reality. And then the abrupt final conversation this morning. He was right. It was better this way. They couldn't mix. The professional world was too delicate. But a dull ache had settled in her chest, right where the perfect crisp collar of his shirt rested. The next day she went to work. It was torture. She wore a pantsuit that screamed professional and don't look at me. She moved through the office like a ghost. When she entered Elias's office, he was exactly the same. Focused, demanding, impatient for results. "The Anderson file needs to be finalized before lunch." "Maya." "They're still dragging their feet on the Clause 4B. Call them and remind them that our deadline is firm. Then schedule a video conference with the Singapore team for 3 p.m. "Yes, Mr. Vance." The way his title rolled off her tongue felt foreign, yet right. Like putting on a familiar, restrictive suit. But things weren't the same. In the middle of dictating an email, he paused. Just for a second. He looked up, his eyes meeting hers. There was a flicker, a sudden, unexpected heat. Then it was gone. But she'd seen it. He'd seen it. The whole week was like that. A dance of perfect professionalism layered over a thrumming, unspoken tension. One afternoon, a box of files fell off her desk. Paper went everywhere. She bent down to frantically scoop them up. Elias, on his way out of the office for a meeting, stopped. He bent down too. Their hands brushed over the same stack of spreadsheets. This time the contact was electric. His skin was warm. Her breath hitched. He pulled his hand back instantly, standing up in one fluid motion. His face was a mask of cool detachment. "Careful, Maya," he said, his voice flat. "Don't let that happen again." He walked out. She stayed on her knees, watching the door close. He hadn't been angry about the mess. He'd been warning himself, warning them. The professional facade was cracking, and the closer she worked with him, the deeper the cracks became. Every late night working side by side felt like another piece of the wall coming down. The way he would rub his temples when he was stressed, the way he drank his coffee black and strong, the fact that he always put a little dish of almonds on her desk because he'd noticed she didn't eat lunch sometimes. These were the details that killed her. He wasn't just a CEO, he was a person she'd been close to. 2 weeks later, the tension was unbearable. It was 9 p.m. They were alone in the huge, silent office. They were preparing for a massive presentation to the board. Maya was reading numbers aloud. The projected growth for Q3 is 18.5%, but that's based on securing the Kai project. Elias leaned back in his chair. He looked tired. The expensive suit was rumpled. He took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "We'll get the Kai project," he said, his voice low. "We have to. That deal means everything." She looked at him. She saw the stress, not the CEO. "It's a huge risk, Elias," he sighed. He looked directly at her. "Everything worth having is a huge risk, Maya." The air thickened. It wasn't about the Kai project anymore. It was about them. "Is that what we are then, a risk?" she asked, the question escaping before she could stop it. He sat up straight. His eyes narrowed, but not in anger. In thought. "You know the answer to that," he said. "You know exactly the kind of fallout this would cause. The board, the shareholders, the media. It's a violation of every professional standard we have. And I would never risk your career." "So you're saying you're protecting me?" she challenged. "Yes," he said simply. "I am protecting you. I am protecting us from making another mistake." He got up and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. He looked lonely. "Rich, powerful, and utterly alone. I didn't just call you a car that morning to get rid of you, Maya," he admitted, his back still to her. "I called the car because if I'd stayed in that apartment with you for 5 more minutes, I would have broken every promise I made to myself, every line I'd drawn, every boundary, because I didn't regret what happened, not for a second. And that scared the hell out of me." He turned around. The confession hung in the air. "I have never mixed business and pleasure," he continued. "I have never risked my company for anything. And I won't, but I can't stop thinking about you." Maya's heart was thumping a chaotic rhythm. This was it. The real conversation. "I can't stop thinking about you either, Elias," she confessed, her voice shaking slightly. "It's been 2 weeks of pretending. 2 weeks of Mr. Vance and Ms. Reyes. It's driving me crazy. Because I know the risk. I see the mountain of problems. But every time our hands touch, every time you look at me, the risk doesn't feel like a bad thing. It feels like the only real thing." He walked towards her desk. He leaned in, placing his hands on the desk, bracketing her. His face was inches from hers. She could smell the coffee and the expensive suit. "What do you want to do about it, Maya?" he asked, his voice a low challenge. "Because the world is watching and the company is watching. And one wrong move could destroy everything we've both built." She stood up, pushing past the desk, closer to him. "I want to be honest," she said, looking him straight in the eye. "I want to stop pretending, but I want to do it in a way that doesn't destroy my career. I love this job. I love working for you. You taught me everything. But I can't keep living with this lie right next to me every day." Elias backed away, running a hand through his hair again. He paced the massive office. "Okay," he said after a long silence. "Then we have 3 options. Option 1, one of us leaves. You find a new job. I recommend you, give you a bonus, and we date openly. Option 2, we continue as we are and we put up better, stronger walls. We stop the late nights. We keep it strictly 9 to 5, and we never ever talk about it again. Option 3, he stopped pacing and looked at her. Option 3 is the stupidest, most insane thing I can think of. But it's the only way to have both." "What is it?" she whispered. "We keep working together, but we start building a life outside of work. Completely secret. No one can know. Not the board, not the media, not our colleagues. If even a whisper gets out, we immediately switch to option 1. We date in shadows. We communicate in code. We risk everything all the time. But we get to keep the jobs we love, and we get to explore. This, he gestured between them. The idea was crazy. It was a movie plot. It was a ticking time bomb. But the thought of never seeing him outside of work, of putting those walls up again, felt like a physical pain. Option 3, she said without hesitation. I choose option 3, Elias smiled. A real, genuine, relieved smile that transformed his face and made him look impossibly young. Then let's figure out where we're going to have dinner tonight, Ms. Reyes, and make sure no one sees you leaving with me. Their secret life began. It was thrilling, exhausting, and completely ridiculous. In the office, they were colder, more formal than ever. Maya was a perfect assistant. Elias was a ruthless boss. The other staff noticed. Wow, he's really cracking the whip on Maya lately. The VP of marketing commented to a coworker. She seems so stressed. Little did they know. Maya was stressed because she had spent the previous night in a luxury cabin 3 states away, sharing wine and laughing with the same man, who was now demanding a 50-page report by 8 a.m. Their communication became a system of almost childlike. Codes. A line in a meeting agenda that said, "Review Q4 strategy" actually meant, "I miss you. Can you meet me at the usual spot?" A note on a file that read, "Please initial 4B" meant, "I love you." They lived 2 completely separate lives, and Maya found herself loving both of them. She loved the thrill of her high-powered job, being in the inner circle of one of the world's most innovative companies. She loved the challenge, the travel, the sense of accomplishment, and she loved the stolen moments with Elias, the way he was clumsy and sweet when they were alone, the way he would tell her stories about his childhood. Far away from the polished CEO persona, she learned that his stern demeanor at work was his own wall, built to protect himself from the shocks of the business world. He was a deeply private person, and sharing even small details with her felt like a huge act of trust. One Saturday, they were in a rented house by the ocean. It was storming outside. They were sitting by a huge fireplace reading. Elias looked up from his book. "I got offered a new venture," he said casually. "It's huge. It would mean relocating the main office, maybe even moving the entire company headquarters to the West Coast." Maya felt a spike of panic. The entire company? What would that mean for us? "It would mean a fresh start," he said. "A new board, new investors. We could maybe finally relax the no dating rule. I could promote you. We could take the risk out of our relationship." The offer hung in the air. A clean slate. Everything she had wanted. But she thought of the team she had built in the office. She thought of the city they lived in, the city she loved. She thought of the excitement of their secret life, the danger, the thrill. She shook her head. "No, Elias, I don't want that." He looked genuinely surprised. "Why not?" "It's freedom. It's what you deserve." "I know," she said, walking over and kneeling in front of him. "But I love the chase. I love the secret. I love that we know and no one else does. It feels like it's just ours. And honestly, Elias, the best part of my job is figuring out how to sneak around you. It's my favorite problem to solve." He laughed, a deep, full, a wonderful sound that was strictly reserved for these private moments. "You are insane." "Maya Reyes," he said, pulling her onto his lap. "Only for you, Mr. Vance." Climax, key moment. The board meeting for the Kai project was a disaster waiting to happen. There was a rival executive, a man named Sterling, who had been trying to sabotage the deal for months. He suspected Maya and Elias were too close, but he had no proof. The meeting was tense. Elias was presenting the final financials. Maya was standing at the side, ready with the slides. Sterling suddenly interrupted. "Mr. Vance, forgive my interruption. But before we sign off on this, I have a concern about the integrity of the data. I've noticed a pattern of irregularities in the reports prepared by Ms. Reyes's team. I suspect a lack of focus, perhaps a distraction. It was a thinly veiled attack." He was implying Maya was incompetent or compromised. He was trying to get to Elias through her. Elias's jaw tightened. He looked furious. But before he could speak, Maya stepped forward. She looked at Sterling, her voice calm and firm. "Mr. Sterling, if you have a specific concern, you should address the data, not my team's focus. The irregularities you're referring to are actually a projection adjustment, which I flagged in Appendix C, subsection 2. It's a conservative measure based on fluctuating interest rates in the Singapore market, a detail your own team seemed to miss in their internal analysis." She didn't stop there. She didn't wait for his approval. She ran through the entire financial projection, speaking in a confident, rapid-fire tone, dismantling every one of Sterling's hidden questions with sharp, undeniable facts. She proved that her distraction hadn't made her slip up. It had made her sharper. The risk of their secret life had pushed her to be utterly flawless. When she finished, the room was silent. Sterling was sputtering. Elias, who had been watching her the whole time, stepped back, giving her the floor. He hadn't said a word. The head of the board, an older woman named Eleanor, nodded slowly. "That was a very comprehensive and frankly impressive breakdown, Miss Reyes. Mr. Vance, your assistant has handled the integrity of the data beautifully. Let's proceed with the vote." They approved the Kai project unanimously. After the meeting, the office was buzzing. As they walked back to Elias's office, he stopped her in the empty hallway. He didn't say thank you. He didn't talk about the deal. He simply reached out, gently cupped her face, and without a word kissed her. Right there in the hallway where anyone could have seen them. It was a kiss of relief, of pride, of passion, and of absolute commitment. "You're the most dangerous thing in this company, Maya Reyes," he murmured against her lips. "And I wouldn't have it any other way." The problem wasn't solved. The risk wasn't gone. But in that moment, in the bright professional hallway, they both realized that the fear of losing their secret was now smaller than the joy of having it. They had faced their challenge, the challenge of trying to destroy their connection, and they had won. They were a team in the boardroom and in the penthouse. So what happened to the girl who woke up in the CEO's shirt? She didn't get fired. She didn't quit. She didn't ruin her career. She just got more powerful. Maya stayed on as Elias's personal assistant. She continued to be the best, sharpest person in the company, earning her position not despite her relationship with Elias, but because of the commitment and honesty it forced out of her. She learned that a little bit of risk can make you work harder, push farther, and love deeper. Their secret life continued, a perfect balance of intense professionalism during the day and passionate, ridiculous secrecy at night. It was a tough road, full of close calls and whispers they had to ignore. But every time they pulled it off, every time they walked out of the office together and no one suspected a thing, they felt the satisfying thrill of having their cake and eating it too. They found a way to have the career they loved and the person they couldn't live without. If you want more secret romance and forbidden love stories, hit the subscribe button.